Thanks everyone for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. I am your host, Lorenzo Melcher. As always, coming to you live from my parents' basement as they let me record in their lovely space. It is very much a grandparent basement. You can't really see it on the YouTube, but trust me, it is. Like I say every week, thanks for always liking, sharing, subscribing, downloading to the podcast. It means a lot that you're always out there listening. Always out there interacting on social media, clicking the bells, all that kind of stuff. So thank you. Thanks a lot for helping this podcast grow. If you want to find us on any social media, just search the Nerdball Podcast. Same thing on YouTube. Like I said, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss an episode. And our email is thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions or want to be on the podcast, reach us there. Also, two other podcasts, Three Different Dads, came out yesterday, Christmas morning. So check that out. Again, just search Three Different Dads wherever you get podcasts. And also on this same feed, don't forget about Things I Learned, which comes out every Tuesday. So please check that out as well. And good thing, you don't have to subscribe to anything new. You just got to download it. And it's a new thing for you to listen to. I also added a little bit of video. It's just a little crude, a crude PowerPoint. Isn't a lot, but as I dive into this more, maybe I'll devote some more time to making not a subpar PowerPoint. So please check that out. Let me know what you think. Also, if you have any things you learned, shoot those over to us at thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. So anyway, that's all the info I have. I don't want to leave you any longer. I want to get to this episode. It was a great episode. I think I say that every week, but every week it's a great episode and I have a lot of fun. So again, please reach us anywhere you want to search the Nerdball Podcast, and we will be happy to hear from you. So thanks again for everything, and thanks for listening to this episode. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Madison Lindsay, and this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
Perfect, Madison. So first of all, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And if you're watching on YouTube and you see the thumbnail of Madison's face, we did talk about how I used that picture for the thumbnail, and so she decided that she wanted to do that, which is awesome. No one's ever done that. I also have only told a couple people, like, hey, make sure you smile or do something. So maybe we'll get more of that. Maybe we'll start a trend.
I hope so. Yeah.
It's
the camp style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for coming on here. I'm excited to sit here and talk to you for about an hour. And the first thing I always ask people is, what is something you're really into? Something you nerd out about, whether it's movies, TV. It just can't be about work. It can be about any activities you do, something to get you away from like just the daily hustle and bustle of life.
Okay, what do I nerd out about?
And if it's a lot of things, then we can talk about a lot of things.
I'd say maybe animals and nature and being outside and playing outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there, because I know part of your job is to be outside and be in nature, right? And obviously, I know you following on social media, you do a lot of, traveling and that kind of stuff. We'll go with animals. Is there some particular animal that you just really are fascinated about? Or type of animals or group of animals?
I have a favorite animal.
Okay.
And that is snakes.
Oh,
Snakes
really?
of any kind.
Really?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert on them, but I do love them a lot. I have a snake.
Oh, you have one?
I do, yes.
What's its name?
Her name is George.
Okay.
I actually got her only 2 or 3 years ago, but she was already 16 when I got her.
Wow.
She had a loving home, but they didn't feel like they had time to give her enough attention. So they thought of me. Well, actually, a coworker thought of me. And I have her now. She's a senior snake.
Wow.
She's probably 4.5 feet long.
What kind of snake?
Corn snake.
Okay.
Yes. So she's a good girl. They thought she was a boy up until she laid eggs. So, yeah.
So I don't know anything about snakes, and you already say you're not an expert, but you may know some stuff. So I learned when we had a dog. He was probably like 10 at one point when we took him to his first checkup, and like, is he on senior dog food? And I was like, no. And he's like, oh, well, dogs this size need to be on senior dog food at 7. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So as far as like your corn snake, what is the like a senior snake age? Do you know that?
I don't know for sure. I know that typically corn snakes live to be maybe in their early 20s. I mean,
Okay.
snakes can go way past
Sure.
the time. But as far as their diet goes, I don't know if there's a senior diet for snakes or not. She eats 3 large mice
Okay.
during each feeding. So
how often do you feed her?
every few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
My buddy had he didn't have a snake, but he was he ended up with a feeder mouse as a pet because he felt bad, so he had a feeder mouse as a pet that he had in his room, and that's what it reminded me of. So you have the snake. Did you have to create and like buy an enclosure and all the stuff for it, or did you have things, or how's that?
No, I was really lucky. So they gave me everything. They gave me a massive tank. They gave me some of the bedding. I only recently ran out of that.
Yeah.
The hides, everything. Yeah. And luckily she was already used to frozen mice, so
Okay.
I never really had to do the live mice thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Does she still lay eggs, or can she still lay eggs?
Weirdly enough, so I had no idea when that would happen.
Yeah.
But the first year she stopped eating, I was so worried. And I reached out to the previous owners, and they had some ideas about it. But then what ended up happening is she laid like 15 eggs, and they just kept coming. I kept finding them. They're weird looking. They're kind of yellow, but they also look like a little chicken egg at the same time, but kind of rubbery. And she just kept laying them, and eventually she stopped. I fully expected for it to happen again this last fall and the fall. So it's been 2 falls since it happened, and it hasn't happened again. So we'll see.
What'd you do with the eggs?
I froze them so they wouldn't stink.
Okay.
And then I put them in the trash.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That for a while there was a TikTok account I was following of a guy who raised snakes.
Cool.
And like he would breed them to try to come up with like different I don't know what you call it. What do you call their skin? Like
Scales?
Okay, so like different patterns on their scales.
Oh, yeah,
right?
like morphs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was doing it, and I was so like invested in this because like he would have he had everything dated. He's like, oh, they're hatching, and then he's like, oh, this one's cool. Oh, this is a really rare one, like all this stuff, and I got really into it. But it seems like a lot of work to hatch snake eggs.
I'm sure it is. I knew someone in college that did it, but I feel really lucky that I got to take care of a senior snake because I recently I met a new friend that had a ball python that he got when he was 6, and she is still alive today. He's a year younger than me, so he's 28.
Okay.
And he kind of got me to look at the perspective on it. And I think if I ever get any more reptiles, I'm going to adopt senior because it's a long life, and you do wonder, what's their day-to-day look like? Like what, they do spend a lot of time in a tank. So I think I'll stick with the old reptiles for sure.
Do you take your snake out?
I do sometimes. Yeah. I have to get the cats. I have 2 cats. So I have to get them put away. For a while I was holding her out near them, and then I saw that could be stressful for a snake. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to lock them up. Yeah.
Also, you said something, you must really know your child if you're getting them a ball python when they're 6.
Yep. Yeah.
My kids want a hamster right now, and I'm like, no, I'm good. We're not getting a hamster. And my son's 13.
Yeah. Well, when I first heard him say that, I was like, you are so lucky. I almost convinced my parents when I was in 7th or 8th grade or something like that. And we got to a pet store, which not the most ideal place to buy them anyways. And they had mites, and my mom was like, this is a sign from God. Like you are not getting one. You're going to go to college in a few years. And I was like, darn, I almost had her.
So you have a plan now to possibly do more reptiles?
Yeah.
Okay.
If and when Georgie passes away, I'll see if the old owners want the tank back. And if they don't, maybe I'll adopt another old snake.
So are there other reptiles, amphibians that you would want to have?
Anything low work. Or anything with a personality.
Okay.
It's tough because snakes are my favorite animal, but when it comes to like going to the zoo or having a pet, I will admit they're not quite as cuddly. They don't give as much back as, or maybe I'm wrong. There are probably some reptile owners that would disagree with me, but they don't give as much back as a cat or a dog or any other mammal. And then at the zoo, I'm like, there's a lot of things that move around a lot more than a snake at the zoo. So they're not my favorite thing to see at the zoo, but they are my favorite animal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a friend, she's been on a podcast. They have an axolotl.
Oh,
And
cool.
they said that is a lot of work.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, they live in caves, I think, or maybe only some of them. But
yeah, they have a tank and everything for it, and she says it's a lot of work, and she has young kids, and they do some stuff. You know, it is. I did find fascinating that I believe, and if I'm mistaken, she'll let me know. I believe it's a they them also.
Yeah.
That their kids decided that. So
very cool.
Yeah. So I like that part of it too. It made me smile. Like, okay, that's a cool thing. Like, well, that's cool. That's I loved animals growing up. I never we had typical like a dog, or I had a hamster in high school, and that was the worst pet. I didn't know they were nocturnal. They are, and they are so loud at night, and I'd get so frustrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have stuck to quote unquote traditional pets.
Yeah.
But I have had friends who've had snakes or other reptiles. So that's cool. It is a cool thing, and especially if you come across friends that also share that interest, it makes it even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, you enjoy animals. You have cats. What are their names?
They're both. I always start with they're both girls because they are named after boys.
Really?
And that's why when George came along, I was like, that's so perfect. So Bernie and Sly Cooper, which is a video game.
Okay.
The Thievius Raccoonus, PlayStation 2 game.
Oh, wow. I never even heard of that game.
Oh, no game has ever been better than that.
Really?
Game. It's the best game.
Oh, been playing video games since Atari, and I've never heard of that one. But you find those games, and you just you're hoping your PlayStation holds on for forever.
It was from my childhood. Played it as an adult. Has stood up.
Yeah.
All three of the first ones have stood up to what I remember, and no one will ever convince me that it's not the best game.
For me, it's always been Mario Kart. Mario
yeah.
Kart's been around for a long time, and I have a lot of terrible and fun memories with Mario Kart.
Oh yeah, it's emotional for sure.
Yes, yes. Very stressful. Very stressful.
Yeah.
So when you're not dealing with your snake Georgie and your cats, what else are you getting into?
Well, I'm very excited that Toledo finally has a rock climbing gym. So I'm often at the rock climbing gym. It's been a busy time lately, so I've only just been getting back into it after taking kind of a hiatus before I left for my Glacier trip. And then I thought I was going to make it back there more often after that, and then Christmas planning came around. But now I'm back in it. I went last night. So yeah.
Where's it at?
It is right across from where my office is at Wildwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Adventist Climbing Gym.
Okay.
There was talks of it all the way back pre-COVID. So I got climbing shoes and a harness, and then, of course, the world shut down. And so I believe it opened in August of 2023 officially. Okay. And that was something I always wanted, and so I'm really excited about it.
Is that on Reynolds? Is that... Like right where it bends and then bends again?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember seeing that there. This is from years ago. My sister would attend dance class there. There was a Daryl Jarvis dance studio.
Cool.
On that property. I don't know if there's and then it turned into a vet office, and I don't know if that's still there or not. But yeah, that same place.
That same area.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's where we grew up. Well, that's cool. There's nothing. It is very interesting to me, rock climbing, but there's no one would ever get me to do it.
Oh, no?
No, I'm so terrified of that.
You got to get the kids there.
So my daughter liked the rock wall you guys had at Market Hall.
Yeah.
My daughter did that.
Yeah.
My son did not. My son and I, for the rock wall, we weigh too much, but my daughter loved it.
Yeah.
And her and a friend went all the way to the top and came back down.
You got to get her to go.
So I bet she would love it.
I wish I had one when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about rock climbing? Just in general, maybe not even just at that place, but just like.
Well, I did more outdoor climbing before the gym came around. Still not an expert. There's not a lot of, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not a lot of mountains around here.
Yeah.
But when I'd travel and stuff like that, I'd get a guide, or I took a class in college. And I think the simplest thing I could say is being high up. I love heights. I also love being under the ground, caving. I love small spaces. I love heights. I love jumping off things. So definitely the adrenaline, and then the problem solving of it. You know, you really are thinking about it. Sometimes there's a video I had at some point of me at Adventus, and I came off the wall probably 6, 7, 8 times and just stared at it and inched my way up this route with 1,000 breaks in between, because I was just like, I have no idea what to do here. So you stop, you stare at it, and So
you said 2 things that terrify me and why I don't do those 2 things. So heights, I don't like heights. Yeah. So being up there, really scary. Also, the people who do it not strapped in anywhere, that is insane to me.
Yeah.
Also, being underground in tight spaces, not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm 6'2". I'm a big guy. I don't want to be in tight spaces.
That's fair.
I see or I've heard people like, yeah, there's this really cool spot we go through. You got to kind of hold your breath to get through. I'm like, no, I don't want. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
Oh.
I totally understand why that would not be pleasant for whatever reason. Just doesn't get to me. It doesn't. No, I have other fears. Yeah. My fears aren't like spiders and things. They're like people being mad at me.
Oh, that's understandable. Yeah.
So, caving. It's a good time. I actually in talks with my boyfriend. We make a lot of big plans. I don't know if it'll happen, but to have a caving group around Toledo, because there's one in Cincinnati. There's one in Dayton, I think. And so you get a group of people and then you go on caving trips.
Yeah.
So maybe one day we'll be able to do that too. But I did it in college. I took a caving class in college, and then I worked down in North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains at a summer camp where we would go on backpacking trips and climbing trips and caving trips. So I did a little bit there too.
What does a caving class look like?
Very little classroom. We did have class, in the classroom, but I feel like I remember mostly the trips, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Where we went for our big trip was kind of hilarious and a hoot, but it's a gentleman's property that I believe goes by Bat Cave Mike.
Bat Cave Mike.
Yes,
okay.
And it is his property, and he bought it to, I think, maybe save it from development or something like that. I could be wrong about a lot of this, so don't fact check. No. So he has these natural caves, which means you might go to Cumberland Caverns or Mammoth Cave, and those are awesome. They're impressive, but they have paths built through them, which is great because they're accessible. Okay. And they're very large and touristy, whereas these caves, by the time you get out of it, you are covered head to toe in mud. And you were like neck deep in mud, crawling through tiny spaces. So they're very natural, less touched caves for sure. And I do have to add that we camp on his property and is a homemade hot tub.
What is that? Is that like a big water trough heated
something
up with wood?
Like that? Yeah, it was metal. I forget what it was made out of, but really cool experience. And that was through Ohio University too. Okay. So it was cool. I have so many questions about how they found him, but it's great. Yeah,
because I would imagine that relationship, whenever it started, had stuck until he decided not to do it anymore, or they decided, the school's like, no, we're good,
I'm sure they probably still do it. Yeah.
That's funny.
And I've had people from my class that went back down and did it. So I think it's just kind of a word of mouth thing.
Yeah. Wow, that's very cool. I would never thought, like, you know what, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna take caving class.
Yeah. Well, I did go for outdoor recreation and education, but yes.
But that particular class, like I think about, I went to Owens for landscape and turfgrass management, and I had to do a class on soil, or trees, and I didn't think about any of that stuff going into it, but I was like, this all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So that class, hearing what your degree is, makes sense. It makes sense to do that, and rock climbing and, all that stuff. So
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Did, you went to OU, right? Did you grew up around here?
Yes.
Okay.
I grew up in Maumee, but we were right on the line, so I went to Anthony Wayne.
Okay.
Now I'm in Sylvania, but I've been around this area for 29 years, except for the 4 or so that I was in Athens.
What made you decide to go to OU?
I visited OU for the first time when I was 8 years old. So my sister is 8 years my senior.
Okay.
So that math doesn't track.
Maybe 10?
Maybe 10, yeah. Moving her in, and we had gone on trips and drove through mountains, but it was usually at night, so I just didn't have a good perspective of any elevation growing up in Northwest Ohio. A very special place here, lots of birds, lots of diversity, but not a lot of elevation. So when I saw the hills, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is so impressive. Now, of course, they're hills, but that was a big deal to me. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. So I pretty much knew I wanted to go there. I toyed with or applied to Boulder, Colorado as well when it finally became time, but wasn't enough scholarships. And I really had my heart set on Ohio University.
Look, OU is beautiful. I had many friends that go there. I would visit them quite often. Would not venture in the outdoors with them unless there was a beer pong table outside. But I loved it down there. I had, like I said, one of my best friends went there, Trey, and we would go visit at least twice a year. Never made it down for Halloween, but we made it for one of the several other festivals and fests, and I think one of them was a number fest. It was, I think when he was there, it was like up to 3 or 4 fest or something like that. And so like we made it to all those, but it's a great place, and I enjoyed walking around, checking it out. It was really cool.
Yeah, the fest. I mostly avoided the street fests. I maybe stopped at 1 or 2, but those were massive. Halloween, wild. I went back a year after I graduated, though, and maybe it was because the rain, but it seemed like it had really, toned down a bit. A little bit.
Maybe the rain. Let's say that. I don't want to hear that it's not as good anymore.
Well, I don't necessarily think it was always that great. When looking back as an adult, it was awesome when I was in school.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, there's a terrible. It doesn't make the school look great. But there's a documentary called One Night in the Biggest Party School in the Nation.
Yeah.
And I think it might be a Vice documentary or something like that. I think you can find it on YouTube.
Really?
And, when you're in college, like, we go to the biggest party school in the nation. And then you watch that documentary and you're like, wow, they really did not do us a favor in this documentary. Like, it's a good school, I promise.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's so,
Well, did you when you were looking at schools, you knew, obviously you knew OU, you liked there. Did you look at schools around here at all, or are you just like, no, I kind of want to get out of here?
I knew I wanted to go further away. I applied and got into OSU, but I get lost in Walmart. Like outdoors, I'm fine, but I know that's one of the biggest campuses, if not the biggest, maybe. And it's lots of buildings and stuff. So I was never really set on going there. It's a great school. The Ohio State University.
It is well documented if you listen to this podcast or my dad's podcast with my friends that there are a lot of Ohio State fans that I enjoy. There are several that bother me, and I am not a Michigan fan at all. Like, I like Texas.
Cool.
I'm University of Texas, right? I am so thrilled, probably more for my Michigan friends, that Michigan has won 4 in a row. I can't. There's a lot of Ohio State fans that I can't stand.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's well documented, and most of them fine, but it is whenever, especially when they're like, oh, the best band, or like, all right, we get it, guy.
Don't get me started about bands. Ohio University's band is way better.
Okay, all right.
It's the most exciting band in the land. They dance, they boogie, they get down.
Nice.
Ohio University, I'm sorry, superior band.
No, I'm here. I'm here for it.
Don't watch football. I play fantasy. I know who I'm supposed to root for per my family. I know the Notre Dame fight song.
Per my family.
Yeah, word for word. I was born into a Notre Dame family.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you who the quarterback is. Sorry, Dad. And I don't watch football. But Ohio University did win the MAC this year, which is pretty cool.
Yes. I saw them. Mateo and I went to watch them at UT when they were here, because currently we have 2 Pearisburg guys on UT and 1 on Ohio.
Very cool.
So we got to watch them. But yes, that was very exciting, because again, my friends that went there are pretty pumped. And they won their bowl game. Yeah. So I think it was like their best season they've had in forever.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the schools around here, they're great schools. I actually did a year and a half in high school. So I was full-time student at BG my senior year and half the day my junior year. So I kind of feel like I get to count that a little bit.
Okay. All right.
A little bit of a Falcon.
Sure.
And yeah, I think if I had stuck around, I probably would have gone to BG just because it's more of a college town vibe.
Yes.
But UT's a fantastic school.
That's why I picked BG is because it felt collegey, and ultimately it didn't work out for me at that point in my life. But I lived down there for a few years, and it was a good time. It's I think I enjoyed. It was perfect for me. I enjoyed living with my friends and then living with my girlfriend, who became my wife. Like I enjoyed all that, and if I would have figured out college a little bit sooner, it would have been better for me. But hey, it all works out, and
It
where
works
I am.
out in the end,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I wish someone had told me to take a gap year because I switched my major like 3 or 4 times. I should have graduated in 3 years. I graduated in 4.5 years. So yeah, but we can't have these regrets. I wouldn't be here where I am today probably if I had taken that gap year. So
I think about that too, and because I was not ready for school, and I should have taken time off, or there are these programs now where we work with one, the Metro Parks works with one where it's junior achievement. They call it the 5th year, where it is that gap year, but they're kind of taking some classes like Gen Ed stuff, and then also working and seeing what they want to do, and it's a really good program.
That's really smart.
Yeah. I wish something like that, because everyone, and I think it's getting better now. Everyone's always pushing college. There's so many other things.
Oh yeah.
So it's good that I feel a lot better. I know as a parent, I'm not like that. I don't feel that way. And we tell our kids now, and they're 10 and 13, like, they both, Mateo wants to play football in college, and Lillian wants to be a college twirler. And we're like, hey, yes, that's your goals. But also, just know if you change your mind, like, we're here for that too. Like, we'll help you with that. Just because it is there's a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you went to Ohio, did you know, like, well, no, you said you switched your major. So what were you going for originally?
Yeah. So at the risk of oversharing, which is never a problem with me.
Hey, say whatever you want to say.
Yeah. I will go through my majors, but largely I switched a lot because of going through a lot of mental illness and a lot of mental health struggles.
Okay.
I can proudly say that I've, conquered those that can be conquered and have, dealt with and have a really healthy hold on those that are just kind of a life thing.
Yeah.
But I started in wildlife and conservation biology is where I started. But pretty much that first freshman year, I was really struggling. I had a severe eating disorder for a few years at that point and didn't want to deal with it. As you usually don't.
Sure.
And so I was not going to classes. I was struggling with, my mental health, and met someone that had, through a friend that had gone through it in high school and had gone to treatment and was on the other side of it. And she kind of talked to me, and she was like, maybe you should consider this.
Yeah.
So I did take my second semester of my freshman year and went to an inpatient eating disorder clinic.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I didn't drop my classes properly. So I did end up with a 0.0 GPA.
How is there no one to help you with that?
It's my own fault. But also, are you really an adult at 18? Like, I don't know.
No.
So that helped. I will say, throughout the rest of college, I had to do some working on it on my own after going to the clinic, but I'm happily and fully through it at this point.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing. And that's wonderful. That's great.
Thank you.
Because not everyone can say, like, you knew, hey, I was been dealing with this, and I know it's an issue, but I'm not dealing with it right now.
Yeah.
Which is, like you said, not a lot of people want to deal with whatever their issues are.
That's part of it.
Yeah. And so it's good to hear that you were able to, and your friends were able to help you and get through this. And that's just one part of it. Then the next part is like, all right, I'm going to do this and whatever it is, because it's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. So I had been in that. Now, then I went through a sort of, I always joke, it's probably a little less than quarter life crisis.
Okay.
And what that was, art is an amazing degree if you're an artist.
Yeah.
I was never that good of an artist.
Okay.
But I got into very poorly drawing and painting when I was in the clinic. And I look back at them now and I'm like, my parents were like subtly trying to push me away from it, but
Oh,
I
really?
was set and, they were like, well, she just went through all this. And so I started as an art major, which
Okay.
is a great degree if you're an artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I spent about, I want to say 1 semester, 1.5, maybe 2 semesters doing that. And what I got out of it was I became a much better painter and a much
Okay.
better drawer. Like I got some skills, but I
Sure.
was not a natural, and I'm still not that. I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
okay. I like doing it. I like drawing. I like painting.
Yeah,
But
and because you took those classes, you gained skills. So I would imagine that plays into you liking doing it because it looks better. It is better.
it does look
Yeah,
better. Yeah. But that was not what I was meant to do. It was just something I was playing around with, and it helped me cope. But it also it's money that you
Yeah.
pay for it.
Yeah.
And then something before I had even left for college. My whole life, I had always been a good writer. Like professors, teachers told me, and so then I dabbled in potentially writing. But then I met someone that was in the outdoor recreation and education program. I was like, that sounds amazing. You are going to class and getting paid to go play outside. That's incredible. How have I never heard of this before? And so I think that was was it my end of my sophomore year? I was undecided to the point where they were like, you have to decide. You have too many credits. You can't keep going this way. So I did find that, and I decided, and I'm so happy that I did.
That's awesome. That's I mean, that to me, possibly even throwing in the mental illness part of it. It's, I don't want to say it's a typical high school student, but it is a lot of high school students that don't know what they're doing, and then they might stress out about it and have breakdowns and have all these other things that they're working through, and it's it's. And I think there just needs to be more people cognizant of that situation.
Absolutely.
Because if people weren't around to help you, what would have happened, right?
Absolutely.
You went down this road, or maybe got better than this road. You would have paid a lot of money to be an art major, and then there's all these different avenues that you get taken. And again, like you're right here, right now for a reason, and that's what happened,
Absolutely, yeah. And a strong support system really does help with that, for sure.
Yeah. There was a study, because I've talked about it here before. My brother was addicted to drugs and died from drug overdose. And there was a study that they talked about with rats. And they gave rats, I don't know if it was like cocaine or some drug, some hardcore drug. And this group of rats over here was, whenever they did drugs and were on drugs, they were by themselves. And then when they introduced them to like other rats and their and like family type structure, they weren't addicted to it anymore, or it helped them. Like they were a lot better off because of this structure, like you talked about, having that, and it's a cool way to think about it. It doesn't always work that way, but it's just having that support structure. Whether it's, I know some people might think it the wrong way. Like for my brother, at some point, it was like, he's going to do what he's going to do. We're going to love him, and we got to just protect him as much as we can until he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, you know? But being aware of it, is I think the most important part. And like your friends and your family were aware of it and are aware of it. And they know that about you. Yeah. Which I'm assuming makes you feel better.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry your brother went through that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Lucky to have you all, though.
Yeah. It was it was a lot. But growing up, I mean, he started when he was young. So you kind of get used to it, I guess, you know, and you're like, this is my brother, and as a kid, you're oblivious to like, what could this turn into?
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate that. Yeah. So, you figure out you want to do, what is it again? Outdoor
recreation and education.
So you figure that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So you take your cool classes like rock climbing and cave exploring class.
Caving. Yeah.
And then, so after you leave, OU, what is the plan? What is the plan for you?
So in my head, in my head, I was going to move out west. I don't know, Oregon, or Washington, maybe Colorado, and be a guide of some type. Maybe I knew in college I really focused on this place that I got to work. So that same friend that was in that degree had worked at this place for 2 summers, and the camp director went to Ohio University.
Oh, wow.
So he would come to Ohio University and scout for counselors. It was a camp for youth and adults with autism, ADHD, and other learning differences.
Okay.
And go on backpacking trips. It was a sleepover camp. But so I did that for 2 summers, and then I focused all of my final papers because, yes, we did have actual in the classroom.
Schoolwork.
Yes, we did have actual schoolwork as well. And I focused all of my research papers and things like that on the effect of outdoor recreation on individuals with many diverse abilities, but particularly autism and ADHD, and helping with social skills and various things like that. And I just loved that specific work, so I knew I wanted to do something related to that if I could.
Okay.
So there's many different places, like I think Easter Seals is the name of one of them, that you can go out and work and take kiddos out into nature and out into the wild and have a really great impact. And largely that's due to the wild. Just being in the wild is good for you.
Yeah.
So, so that happened. And then I came home. Obviously I couldn't just go. I mean, some people do that all the time, but I couldn't just go. I'm very close with my family. But my mom, and I always tell this story, and then I realized I probably wouldn't have done that anyways.
Okay.
But my mom was diagnosed. She's okay. She was diagnosed with cancer. And I found that out. I had graduated in the fall. I found that out probably January, I think. So she started treatment, and I found a seasonal position that seemed perfect. I actually worked at the zoo for 2 weeks on the challenge course and the zip line and stuff.
Oh, okay. For 2 weeks.
Yes. Yeah, so I applied to 3 different Metro Park seasonal jobs and didn't hear back, programming jobs. And then I got accepted at the zoo and got trained, got to jump off the free fall thing like 6 times as other people got trained. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But then Metro Parks called, and not only did they have a better offer, like they focused hours on college students, and I was already graduated. And this was the camp inclusion programmer position.
Oh,
so
perfect.
It was focused on that. So my boss, who actually I work with often with Metro Parks now, he's at Keep Toledo, Lucas County Beautiful, Adam. He was really nice about it, totally understanding. So I went over, got a seasonal job at Metro Parks as a camp inclusion programmer, and I just fell in love and decided, I probably would have never lasted away from my family. My mom's my best friend. I have siblings. I have 6 nieces and nephews.
Oh, wow.
Everyone's in the area. So I probably never would have made it anyways, but it definitely put things in perspective, having my mom go through that.
Oh,
for
sure.
Yeah. And I stuck around.
It does change things when you are planning, you have all these things, and then some devastating news happens or something. And, sometimes, and I'm sure maybe this might have been the case in your mom, because I know sometimes parents are like, hey, I'll be fine. You got to do what you got to do, right? So I don't think it's, I'm not going to say they're a terrible parent, because I think it's bad. I don't think any parent's like, nope, you got to stay here and help me. Like, I don't think that exists, right?
No.
I think every parent wants their child, or, an aunt and uncle wants their niece and nephew to go out, do all these things.
Oh, yeah.
I will be fine with whatever I'm dealing with. I'll be good. Your flight away, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
she never would have told me not to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel that too. That pull too is like both my kids' set of grandparents live here. My parents were in their basement now, and my in-laws live 3 houses down from us. And growing up, I had one side of the family lived in Texas, and the other side was here in Ohio. So I didn't get to see them a lot. So I like having that here. You know? Now they don't have a lot of cousins around here, but they have grandparents that they can see all the
That's
time.
awesome.
Or like yesterday, or was it? Yeah, Friday, I was on the phone with my wife, and I heard my daughter in the background, and she's like, I'm going to Nons. See ya. I'm like, she's 10, but she gets to just walk to her grandma's house.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and hang out. And, and the same thing here at my parents' house. They can come here. So I feel that pull of like, why would I leave all this stuff. And then if you could find a great opportunity, like, at the time it was a zoo for 2 weeks
Yeah.
and then it was the metro parks. And like, okay, then this makes sense.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm assuming there isn't any pull to want to go. Obviously, you go visit those places, but to go out there and live and do all that stuff, right?
Maybe down the line. But I really got to see these grandkids grow up, and, one day I want to have my own kids.
Sure.
And I mean, free Nana babysitting. And if Nana can't do it, she's already made my siblings promise because they all got free Nana babysitting that they have to help me. So I'm hoping my 3 older siblings will help me out by the time that I'm having kiddos as well. And, maybe after everyone's grown up, who knows? But yeah, visiting when I can is great. And the thing I tell myself is the case. Who knows if it's true, but I tell myself is that it wouldn't be as special if I lived there all the time. If I lived there all the time, it wouldn't be as impressive every time I go. So
this is totally the opposite of being in nature, but that's how I feel about Disney World. Like, I love Disney World. Awesome. It is awesome. But you're right. Like, if you lived there, you could go there all the time. Then it's not like the buildup isn't there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that really drew me, besides seeing you every once in a while at work, but the fact that you went on a trip by yourself,
yes,
which seems very. I don't even like flying by myself, but to be like hiking and traveling and doing all that stuff by yourself. Where did you go again?
I went to Glacier National Park in Montana.
Okay, and you went by yourself. And what was there ever a time before you left? Like, I don't know if I should be doing this by myself.
No.
Okay.
No, there wasn't. It really didn't start off as a solo trip.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I requested the time off. I knew I wanted to do a big trip somewhere.
Yeah.
I chose Glacier because it's my favorite place I've ever been, but also because I had been 2 years prior with a former boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And so I knew some parts of the park, and I thought it would be much easier to plan a trip at all.
Yeah.
And my original plan was to find someone to go with me just because that sounded fun.
Yeah.
But pretty quickly I was realizing that's, the people in my life that was going to be hard. And I was like, maybe this can be a solo trip.
Okay.
I had resistance though.
I'm sure.
I did. I had, I'm thinking about, I do these Shutterfly books, these photo books for my family. I write them as a story. So I'm thinking about doing a sort of kids book about the trip called To Be Brave.
Okay.
And it's going to be more about how brave my mom and dad had to be because my mom fought it tooth and nail, not, just for the safety part of it. She, like me, reads a lot of true crime, listens to a lot of true crime, and was just really worried about it. She always made it really clear. It's not that I don't think you could do it. I just don't trust other people. And I felt really bad. And I did push off buying my tickets for a long time. But I knew that she would never forgive herself if I folded and didn't go. Mm-hmm. And I told her that. And I knew that if I finally said, no, I'm not going, I don't think she would have been very happy.
Yeah.
So she did get me the nicest GPS on the market that you can use pretty much anywhere, and it connects to your phone and all that. So now she will never fight me on it again because she realized how easy it was to communicate with me with this awesome GPS. She got me pepper spray and a taser, a very pretty purple color. So she really did everything. I told her she didn't need to do any of that, but she said I need to be able to sleep at night. I'm not sure that she did sleep at night the whole time I was gone, but
maybe she got an extra hour.
Yeah. So no fear really on my end, at all.
What about your dad? Was he just like, yes, what your mother said?
I think he was nervous too. I don't think he was quite as nervous, but he also, I don't think he consumes as much true crime as my mom does. Yeah. And I think anyone who identifies as a woman, and men deal with it too, but anyone who identifies as a woman knows the world is can be a scary place. Yeah. No matter how strong you are, statistically, we have to be a little worried everywhere we go. So I think he's living in a place that perspective, you might have a little less of that perspective.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
you should absolutely.
He doesn't have to think about just parking in a parking lot where there's no lights.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, he wasn't necessarily thinking about it as much about that, but I think he was worried too. He was still worried. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they shared their worries together while they laid in bed, and it was like, I wonder where she's at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure.
Well, but that was cool, like to see you experience that and go through that. And is there something online, like pictures online that you have of that?
Yeah, I have my laptop with all the pictures on it, but I can also get on, I don't know, can you get Instagram on here?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I was looking, I know sometimes people use different names than like I have family who uses like their first and middle name.
Yeah.
Or like initials or something. So
yeah.
I was trying to find you on Instagram earlier and I couldn't. So I don't know. What is it?
It is Mads Rads. And I can never remember if there's a 5 at the end, so we'll see.
Maybe that's why.
There.
This one?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because I was on your Facebook too. Oh no, I got to follow you.
Oh, that's okay. Can I?
Okay. Yeah, so I was on your Facebook page, and but everything seemed old on there. I was like, well, maybe she doesn't use that. I mean, people don't use Facebook that much anymore.
Yeah. Is it okay if I grab my phone?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will warn you. Not warn you. That makes it sound much scarier. I really want to post all my photos from vacation, but I'm on day 4 in terms of posting this trip from August, September. And I get really overwhelmed when I have all the photos to post because I don't get on that often. So I still haven't even posted all of the photos from the trip.
Okay.
I have in my drafts on Instagram, I think it's day 4 or day 5, ready to go, already written up. I just need to get on my computer and transfer the photos from my camera.
Yeah.
And I just haven't done it yet.
How long were you there?
I was there Saturday to 6 or 7 days.
Okay.
I think. I was going to be there longer to get a half sleeve tattoo done.
Oh.
But that fell through. He did work on my arm the last time I was there. But that one fell through, so I ended up coming back a little earlier.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Also, I was.
Do you like that?
Toots will always be.
They
fun.
will. I'm very pro toots. I'm pro bodily functions and not being ashamed of them.
100%.
It's a huge philosophy in my life.
My only thing, and I will never tell my kids like, "Hey, don't do that." I just don't want that at the dinner table.
Oh, that's fair.
Other than that,
yeah.
Fair game.
But what if it's an accident?
Accidents are fine, but I know when it's not.
That's true. It's sometimes easy to tell.
Yeah. All right. So where am I going here?
So you passed this trip. There's plenty from the other trip too. But the thing is, they're all like photo videos.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
So
what am I looking at? Or what should I click on?
That was probably my favorite day of the trip.
Okay.
There's music, so you might have to mute it.
All right. So, you said you have how many days?
Again, in the park, I want to say like six or so.
Okay.
Maybe 5.
Okay. So you camped and everything out there too?
Mm-hmm. So I drove a car. I got a Turo.
Okay.
Am I allowed to mention brands? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm not popular enough to.
Okay. So I got.
I like Turo, by the way. And
great.
If no one's ever used Turo, it's like Airbnb for cars.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's really good.
Yeah. And the person that owned the car was awesome. She was someone similar to my age, loved hiking, even gave me a cooler for free because I inquired about, just leaving cash for her for a cooler. And she's like, I'll just put it in the car. Mm-hmm. And she gave me recommendations and stuff like that. So I would drive and camp in a campsite each night.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I've had friends I had a friend go in Yellowstone and camp like where you camped for like a week straight. Like you didn't get in the car. You had all your stuff with you that you
Backpacking,
needed. Yes.
yeah.
That seems very cool. Like I feel like I would want to do that. They did tell me about the expensive things they had to buy because everything had to be really light.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine like trying to find a particular kind of fork and spoon because it's really light and it's astronauts use it. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yes. So backpacking, I have done backpacking. I don't know that I would backpack alone at Glacier because of being in grizzly country.
Yeah.
Now, I think there are people that can do it, but you do take a risk even just hiking alone in grizzly country. You're much better off with even groups of 3, but definitely alone is quite a risk.
So I feel like if I was a bear and I'd imagine just having more people would scare them off because there's more of you than them. Or 'cause
Yeah.
I feel like a bear, it doesn't matter. Like, all right, there's 3 of them. Cool.
Yeah.
More food. I don't know.
Right. Well, so from what I know, I listen a lot to a bear biologist podcast.
Yeah.
And Tooth and Claw.
Tooth and claw. All right.
But from what I've learned from that is that if, grizzly bears, if they're going to be a predatory attack, or whether it be a predatory attack or a mother with cubs, you got to decide, is it worth it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't mean that you're much less likely to have that encounter turn aggressive. I'm probably not using the right words, so definitely go check them out for that stuff. But you're much better off having a group of people than just one person, especially with the mother and cubs. You're usually, if you walk up on them, you surprise them, that's a big concern there.
Yeah.
So if you have a group of people talking and laughing and coming up the trail, more often than not, they're probably going to hear you and get their cubs away from you than just have you quietly sneaking up on them.
Okay.
So
maybe just have a podcast on full volume as you're walking around by yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
If you want to, do you have an HDMI on your computer or is it not?
It is an Air.
I don't know. I don't know enough about computers to know what's what will work or what has what. Oh no, that's too. No.
I don't have it with me, but I usually have a converter.
No, that's all right. That's all right. What you can do, if you don't mind doing this, just send, if you want to send some photos you like, and then I can include it in the podcast too.
Sure, yeah.
But it doesn't.
Now
whatever
or?
No, whenever.
Okay.
No, you don't do it now.
Yeah.
That way, like, we can be talking about this, and I'll edit it, so as we're talking about it, it's, they're just playing and people can see them or whatever.
That'd be great, yeah.
What were some of your favorite moments on this trip?
So I had a favorite day.
Okay.
My favorite spot to camp was something that I had learned from the last trip, Lake Bowman, and I probably will send some pictures from the first trip too, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because some of those places I got much better pictures on the first trip than I did on the second trip. But the trail from this particular day I had not gone to before. And I had been going back and forth between 2 really big trails. I would have liked to do both of them, but they are feats. One of them I knew I wanted to do, I thought I might do, was the Highline Trail.
Okay.
The Highline Trail, you are walking literally up on the very tip of a mountain.
Sorry to cut you off, but that reminded me of, I think it was Kevin Collins, who's out at Oaks. We were on a ride for the Metro Parks going down to Columbus and for some training and stuff, and he talked about the Angel's Pass or something really terrifying where people have died like going on this. I go, why? Why would you? Why do people want to do that? That's what I can see a picture of it if you want. So but anyway, sorry. That's what that reminded me of, because I don't know. Again, with this rock climbing and cave exploring, caving, it's hard to understand. Like, I get it, and I love the pictures that people take, and I'm sure your pictures are beautiful. I wouldn't want to do it. That's all.
Yeah, and you know what? In a strange way, I can understand when people have fears of those things because that's a natural thing to fear.
Yeah.
You know? So I get it. I just don't have that reaction in my body that you have.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So the Highline Trail, I didn't end up doing. On
Okay.
the first time I ever went there, the person I was with had an injury. I walked down that part.
This part right here?
Yeah, that's right at the beginning.
Okay.
So I walked down that part, got some pictures, but because of this person's injury, we couldn't go.
Okay.
So we didn't do that. Really fun story, really quick.
Sure.
At some point, I wasn't there, but there's pictures of this. People were walking down the trail, this trail right here,
Yeah.
and a grizzly bear came walking down. And so there's pictures of people climbing. Some
there's
climbed
no room.
up and some climbed down, and you can see the picture from the side. And that I actually heard on that podcast too, but I looked it up. And
Whose picture? Is just a picture online somewhere?
yeah, if you search Highline Trail Grizzly, I bet you'll find it.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere to go. And the
Yeah, I was
grizzly's
just-
just minding its own business. But if there's nowhere to go, the grizzly's going to be like, get out, what
Yeah,
are you
see ya.
doing
Bye.
here?
Yeah.
It was just walking, and what you got to do is get out of its way. And
Yeah.
they had to find a way to get out of its way. I think it's maybe this one. Let's see. Oh, wait.
Oh, these are news videos.
There should be a picture.
Let's see. I'll see if I can find something better. But
Yeah.
so you said you didn't do this last time. The
Yes.
trail, right?
Yeah, I did. The first time I went part of the way down, it was my plan to do this trail.
Okay.
But then, again, I actually reached out to that podcast because this is somewhere they go often, and I said, I want to see. I had seen lots of black bears on the first trip, lots of cool wildlife, but I hadn't seen 3 big ones that are at Glacier. I hadn't seen a grizzly bear, I hadn't seen a mountain goat,
Okay.
and I hadn't seen a bighorn sheep. And I said, I'm between this trail and another trail called Grinnell Glacier. I don't know which one to do.
Yeah.
They're similar difficulty levels, similarly, described. And they said, I love Grinnell Glacier Trail.
Okay.
So I ended up choosing that one.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did because on that one hike,
Yeah.
I saw a mountain goat, a bighorn sheep, and a grizzly bear mama and her cubs
Wow.
in one day.
Yeah.
So even though I'm sad I still haven't done the Highline because I've wanted to do it both times,
Yeah.
I'm really happy I chose Grinnell Glacier. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was incredible. Similar difficulty level, but yeah, just beautiful. Now, when you get to the glacier, because you are hiking up to a glacier,
Okay.
you look up and you actually see the people on the Highline Trail
Oh, really?
at the very top, little ants climbing on the top of a mountain.
Little ants.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool to see too.
Yeah.
So really, it was just between the two. I will go back and I will be hiking the Highline Trail again.
So if you go back,
Mm-hmm.
how come you didn't do both of them? Like,
Well, there's probably a few reasons. They're both a lot of work. Now, I don't remember being overly sore from Grinnell Glacier. You're not, except for maybe at the top, you're not really climbing. You're not climbing at the top either. You're just high, kind of scrambling, high stepping.
okay.
So it's not the most intense trail that anyone's been on or anything. The other part is you have to get up really early to get parking at. You have to do that for Grinnell too, but I probably didn't get there till like 8, and I was still fine. With Highline Trail, it is a really busy part of the park that the trail starts at, and lots of people want to do the Highline Trail. So you also have to get this shuttle. So the Grinnell Glacier is an out and back.
Okay.
You hike out to the glacier, you come back. You can take a boat back, but I hiked back. With Highline Trail, it's out, and then you have to get a shuttle back, and the shuttle ends at a certain time.
Oh.
As you may have realized this morning, I am not. I didn't wake up that late, but I also am. I'm diagnosed very much ADHD. I will find every possible avenue to be late. So I wasn't convinced. I was convinced I could do that on one day. I wasn't convinced I could do that on 2 days.
Okay.
And you know what actually happened? Because I don't know if we'll have time to get into this or not, but I made friends on the Grinnell Glacier Trail. And
I feel like you make friends pretty easily.
I do. I absolutely love people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was my intention to do a solo thing for forest therapy, which I recently got certified in. But part of the homework, for lack of a better word, was to do a solo walk. And so I planned on doing the Grinnell Glacier solo, but then I met these awesome people and they invited me to come with them. And I was like, sold.
Yeah.
Also, they were 5 like emergency room, trauma room nurses. So who else do you want to be with?
Perfect. Yeah.
When you're on the trail. My mom's a nurse and also was concerned about my safety. So I told her that and she was so happy.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So yeah. So here I'm totally distracted now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you did those trails.
Yeah.
Because I asked why you didn't do both.
Oh
but
yeah.
I could see why.
Yeah.
Like.
And I might have, but then there was a storm the next day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I considered it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure your mother is pleased that you didn't go during a storm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely wouldn't go during a storm because it's not super warm here at Glacier. You know, it gets down to 40, 30 at night, but during the day it can get pretty warm in the summer.
All right. So we've talked about places you've been, and things you have done. Is there one place in the whole world where you're like, yes, I want to do that? Because you talked about, making plans, but that doesn't have to be in that plan that you made. Is there something that you want to do? Or maybe you don't want to share it because your mom will be worried about it.
Oh no. Well, after the Glacier trip, she actually said she'll feel, because of the Garmin or the GPS, she's much more comfortable with me going places. But so I want to visit every national park for sure.
Now, there has to be, because my dad talked about that too. He likes hiking.
Yeah.
He's an older guy. He doesn't like go crazy, but he likes hiking. He talked about national parks too. But I looked up national parks and there's hundreds of them, but then there's classified as like, well, here are the big ones. Like, what does that mean to you when you say I want to visit national parks, all the national parks?
Well, I have this scratch off map.
Oh yeah. I've seen those.
Yeah. My sister gave it to me as a gift. It's actually missing one of the newer parks at this point, but I think so. There's national parks, but there's also national monuments.
Okay.
So I think just the national parks are potentially doable in a lifetime.
Okay.
There's also national historic sites and things like that. Like we have Fallen Timbers. I've gotten that. You got to get your passport and get it stamped. So I guess that's kind of a lame answer, but the ones on my map plus the new ones.
Okay. How many are on your map? About, do you know?
Let's see, maybe 100.
Okay.
Yeah, there's got to be an answer.
I'm just curious because I've seen a lot like on TikTok. They always like sell them, or depending on where you're at. This is the one I always see is the scratch off one.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this one it looks like 6 times 4, 20, 48.
I think there's 7.
Or 7, yeah. No, 8. I'm terrible. 64.
Oh, no, there is 8. I thought 7.
Yeah. 8, 4, 6, 64 of these. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool because
right.
I wanted to give something like that to my dad. Again, he does he's in a park and walk for a couple hours and then leave,
Does he like board games?
I don't think I've ever seen him play a board game.
No.
I mean,
there's a really great board game called Parks, and you visit all the national parks.
Oh, okay.
And I love it.
All right.
But yeah, general idea.
Yeah.
I also have my little passport book, so I guess whatever ones are in that. That would be a play. I kind of have to split up. I can't pick between places in the United States and places far off because I want to go to both. And I just can't choose.
There isn't one thing that sticks out to you, like the some sort of awesome cave or a rock climbing or like something that you're like, yeah, regardless of what I'm doing, this is what I have to do by the time I'm done here.
I think my favorite place would be a place that has mountains to climb. And also, I like mountain lakes. So Glacier is these glacial lakes and these big mountains. So I've always wanted to go to New Zealand.
Oh, wow. Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to forget, and then I'm going to be like, darn it, I should have said that one.
That's all right.
I'd love to go to Katmai and see the grizzly bears in Alaska.
Okay. Yeah.
Yosemite, I really want to climb in Yosemite. I can't choose much,
hey, that's fine.
you know?
That's fine. Yeah. It's good because I would imagine there's better times to go to these parks than other times, right? So it's very much seasonal. So you could go like, oh, I like this one at this time, and this one would be good at this time. You know, like I get it. It's it is. When you're talking about outdoors and parks, there is a lot of outdoors to see, right? So it's hard to narrow down, and I get it. Maybe that was an unfair question, but
no, not at all. I'm just overcomplicating it. I have a really hard time choosing and making decisions, especially on something I love. So the Great Barrier Reef, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. See, there's a lot of these things that I love National Geographic magazine, especially when I was a kid. I would just look at all the pictures because they're so cool, and all these places like the Galapagos Islands, all these things are just awesome to see. So I get it. Now we me and you could go to the same place and have totally different experiences.
Yeah,
but we'd both be excited about it, right?
Absolutely. You should definitely do Glacier. I 10 out of 10 recommend it.
All right. Well, perfect.
11, 12, 15. Yeah.
Well, as you can see, counting is not a strong suit.
Yeah.
So.
Not for me either.
Yeah. Well, Madison, this was wonderful. I look forward to those pictures so I can include those in the podcast. Thank you for coming on here and talking and being open about your life and everything that you're going through. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. If you want to reach out or be on the show, just search the Nerdball Podcast on any social media. If you want to email us, that is thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always YouTube, so you can go on there, subscribe to the Nerdball Podcast, and watch the podcast every week. As always, thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuddlefish Graphics, Big Daddy Graphics, and Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always supporting the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.